Today, we are going to talk a little bit about the integration of AI in generative search across a range of platforms, both search engines. We'll also talk a little bit as well about some social media and AI and algorithms. And I thought basically to kick us off today, we'd take over to you, Dylan. And I wanted
Yeah.
to ask you a little bit about the integration of AI and generative search specifically across search engines like Google and that
Yeah.
their impacts on SEO, basically.
Yeah. No worries at all. Yeah. So one of the questions I've started to get asked, actually in the last couple of weeks, is why is SEO important anymore? Because anything you normally type into Google now, if it sort of gives if it's able to give you a black and white answer, it will appear at the top. And I'm sure a lot of people who use Google is starting to see that. So I did get asked. It was like more of a question like is blogs on websites and actual core content throughout the core pages is it still as important as it was, say, 2-3 years ago? And the answer to that is absolutely yes. One of the key things about that sort of AI overview at the top of Google search is the data that it's actually collecting is from websites themselves. So SEO is still powering that. That is where that AI is pretty much learning and continues to learn. So basically, anything you search for on Google, anything you create on websites, that's basically fueling your AI search, or your basically the information that's coming up at the top of that. Now, what I would say is, and something I've noticed from working on some digital strategies recently, is there is becoming a little bit of a shift towards more, sort of useful websites, I would say. So the shift is kind of, it used to be very important for the likes of, general blog websites, listing websites, directories, things like that. They used to do very, very well because they had so much information on them and they were informative. I'm starting to see that more e-commerce and sort of service-based websites are doing a lot better. So that's websites that have, say, maybe sort of e-commerce products, things like that on it. Even things like, we've noticed quite a shift in a few websites that have sort of calculators on them. So thinking of your, financial planners and things like that, people who have those sort of useful tools on it, Google is starting to look at that like a really pro point, and it is something that it is shifting. But again, SEO is not going to go away. Not in the foreseeable future, at least. I can't speak for 20 years, obviously, because you just never know where it's going to go. There'll be robots in 20 years by everybody's predictions. But at the minute, we're definitely seeing that it's still massively important. Really the overviews, the actual answers that the overview is giving you on Google. It's good, that it is brilliant, but they're very short and snappy, where some people actually want informative, long, sort of descriptive information based on certain topics. So that's when they're going to click into maybe the actual citation. So when you click into the actual overview, it will tell you where it's getting that information from. And Google's analytics is showing us that there is a lot of people actually clicking into those citations to read further into it, because the actual overview isn't given enough information. There is also the side of it, that people don't trust AI still. It's not fully, kind of grasped it that, oh, this is telling the complete truth. So they actually want to see real websites that have the information on them. So again, referring back to that sort of authority, trust, things like that, that's what people are looking for. And that all boils down to SEO, how good your content is, how well it's laid out, things like that. So in summary, I guess to my point is absolutely SEO is going nowhere at the minute, but it is a massive benefit that obviously we have this search at the top. Click-through rates are dropping, so the actual amount of people who's clicking into websites is dropping, but that is just because more people are using the overview search for more simple answers, I would say. And again, this sort of moves into a broad range of things. I mean, I know, like, AI powered searches across lots of different areas. I mean, obviously, your department more social media. There's obviously massive amounts of things nowadays as well. But I do think that it's. I always say this when I talk about AI. It's very exciting to see where it's sort of leading towards.
It's really interesting there, I think, what you touched base on this kind of this question coming up, is SEO still relevant? I think that that sort of opinion stems from people's if potentially, lack of knowledge of AI, as in AI has been integrated into algorithms and systems on platforms almost since like their creation,
Yep,
essentially,
absolutely. Yeah.
and it's that exactly as you'd mentioned, the sort of ongoing, consistent content creation and ensuring that your website is informative and beneficial and is SEO optimized, that the AI uses that to then understand what to push the user, as well as then their search history and their interests as well. And it's the exact same thing with social media algorithms. The feed that you see of Instagram Reels or on TikTok, it's not just magically pushed to you. The AI and the algorithm is what sort of distinguishes what you're most likely to engage with or be interested
Yep.
in. It's kind of that crossover, isn't it? It's not something to be afraid of and go, oh, I'm not going to do SEO anymore because there's generative search. It's that integration of it
Yeah.
into your strategy, essentially.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, I mean, obviously everything is very powerful and it's getting even more powerful by the day. Another thing, like, businesses rely quite heavily on is Google My Business. I know Khadija, that's sort of an area that you have dealt with quite a bit. And again, maybe not something towards maybe the AI side of it, but again, just to reinforce that sort of, local side of SEO and how important that is as well, because that's something that AI cannot control. It's something that sort of, the business themselves.
Yeah, I mean, local SEO is stronger than ever now. That's primarily because of the increased use of mobile devices. There's kind of fueled this kind of surge of like near me kind of type searches. So like restaurants near me, shops near me, things like that. So again, this just means that SEO is still important, but now it's kind of evolving to kind of help that local SEO that's crucial for a lot of businesses. So incorporating kind of like location-based keywords into your content, your meta tags, all of that. That's going to help you in your search engine results pages as well. And again, with the Google My Business optimization, it's not just like a simple kind of profile that just sits there on Google. Like it is the cornerstone of your SEO strategy. It's essential that you keep that updated and it's accurate. Replying to user reviews that are left on there, because we were seeing in more focus on people looking into reviews of a business or a service because there's more trust in that now. So that kind of user review content, almost like user generated content, um, people find that more authentic. So leaning into that as well. It's still part of SEO, but it's just a different type now instead of additional kind of keywords and keyword targeting content, basically. So definitely, it's just another
Absolutely.
restructure it.
Absolutely. And I think you said something there and it's kind of stood out to me. I think that's the best way to put it. SEO is evolving. It's stuff
Mhm.
like it's not like it's dying, because that's pretty much the question I got asked a few weeks ago is SEO dying? I think your point there, it definitely is evolving. It's changing. I think it's been evolving for every single year that SEO has been around. I just think that it's taken a completely different step now in terms of, AI has been so integrated into it. Another thing you touched on there that was interesting, and I think this also overlaps into your sort of department as well, Nuala, is the type of content that people are putting onto websites now. People and Google in particular wants to see real life content. So we are starting to try to push a lot of clients towards creating videos, and those videos being them standing in front of a camera talking to their audience, because not only is that good that, in terms of Google looks at that and they see, oh, this is good, they're putting a lot of effort into the website. But if you think of, any website, you're trying to sell your service, you're trying to sell your products. If you're talking to, or not talking, but if you're actually looking at somebody talking about their services and kind of get that personal feel with them, you're more inclined to trust that company. Again, or I think I referred to trust earlier on as being a key thing. So sort of multimedia, even images, actual real life images, very easy to create AI images nowadays. But people and Google specifically are definitely wanting more, videos. And I would imagine, Reels, obviously Instagram Reels, things like that. Obviously, you can probably do AI ones, but the ones that probably perform the best, I would say it's more the real ones.
That's a really interesting point because we're actually seeing the opposite at the moment in social media,
There you
um,
go.
especially across TikTok.
Okay.
AI generated content tends to, in terms of insights, perform better. It's really interesting. A lot of content creators, they're using AI in their strategy to AI tools to help them create content. So things like Opus Clip, say for example, you record a podcast, a long form interview, and you use an AI tool to cut it down. The AI tool Opus Clip, it's pulling out keywords from the conversation and creating social cuts. Those tend to perform really well. It's the same, I suppose, isn't it, with SEO, when people use AI to support them with their content creation, say
Yes.
optimizing the on-page copy. Google has admitted as well, we're not going to penalize that as long as it's educational, informative, and that's I think what determines a really good strategy? It's the integration of the AI tools to enhance the content, not necessarily
Yes.
replace. We're also seeing now AI labels on social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram, where you now need to label your content as AI created. It's slightly different for pictures and images. An AI generated image will never perform as well as a real image, but with short form video, slightly different.
That's a positive, I guess, because I mean, it's easier. I suppose it's easier to create for people as well. And again, I appreciate, with the videos, if you're starting a video, even creating a video from scratch, it is a lot of work, and sometimes
Yeah.
even financially, it can, be quite budget restrictive. So I guess that, that's a positive across the board, to sort of, sort of see that, which is, which is good for, it's good for, for anybody that uses social media heavily.
Definitely. And even with ideas, idea generation, especially for things,
Yeah.
campaigns, coming up with unique campaigns. If you're using the roads framework and prompting a tool like ChatGPT effectively, you can see some really good creative ideas being generated there. It's definitely about the use of the AI to support and enhance the content rather than replace. Because if we use it to replace, that's where we get into that kind of gray area now where we're all getting very AI savvy and we know when something's AI generated in comparison to human generated, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. Again, as I said earlier on, it's always quite exciting when you speak about AI, because it's evolving. It's going to be completely different this time next year. Already, when you consider what we've came through, the last year. But yeah, it is good. And another sort of point with websites, what we're sort of seeing at the minute is just in regards to the snippets that Google is taking for its AI searches, and this is even obviously Gemini, things like ChatGPT, things like that. They all have their own systems as such. It's not just the one that's attached to Google. They are pulling in information to all of those sort of systems directly from Google search. And the websites that's performing the best in terms of what's been pulled in is the well-structured websites. So in terms of making sure the heading structure is correct, making sure there's only one H1 and multiple H2s, and actually, structured correctly, because that's the way that Google has been able to pick it out. Headings above anything else at the minute are massively important. Meta titles, descriptions, things like that. That is what we are prioritizing, rather than that generic one answer informative content that would go on a blog. That's the biggest shift that we're seeing from a strategy point of view. And I think you sort of mentioned that earlier on, Khadija, that, it's just sort of adapting in terms of the way we do it more than anything. One thing I wanted to touch on as well is sort of where we predict it, because this is again the same sort of question I got answered or got asked last week. Is, okay, it's not dead at the minute, it's not going to die. But where is it going? What's going to be the biggest change in the next 5 to 10 years? And one of the sort of bits of key research that I had done looked at SEO is going to be more about, like kind of a chat. That's what it's going to be in the next sort of 5 to 10 years. So you imagine at the minute with your ChatGPT, you go in, you ask it a question, it gives you an answer back. That is the way SEO is going to be. And that's sort of how it is at the minute with the way that Google has at the top, but it is going to evolve more and more into that. And I know that may sound like SEO is not important when it comes to that, but in terms of the information that's being pulled, that's what the information on people's website is what's been pulled in. So if Google is relying really heavy on that, the information people have is going to be probably the most important thing.
I think it's also important to think about, if you're considering AI integration in search engines, and is SEO still relevant for your website? Thinking about how you can also implement your SEO strategy on your social media, because AI is looking at your business's presence across the board, not
Yeah.
just in one place. So if you are focusing on a really clever, SEO strategy for your site, integrating those keywords as well into your social media content, it's going to really, really help. SEO is integrated into platforms like TikTok and Instagram.
Yes.
People are going there to use those platforms like search engines. So if
Yep.
you've got, keywords in your content, that's going to sort of inform all algorithms as to your business and what you do. Something you
Yeah.
mentioned there earlier, Dylan, about, headings and keywords and that sort of thing. It's also, one of the reasons that we're seeing AI content perform well on social media is because if you use an AI tool to generate captions, say for your reel, 9 times out of 10, that's going to have a very similar kind of format, as in
Yes.
your keywords, your key messaging, and then potentially, your hashtags if it's relevant, dependent on the
Yep.
platform. And it's those like repeated generated, captions that have similarity, the AI can read those better because
Mhm.
it's a machine. It can read those types of copy better. So that's why some of those, platforms are
Yep.
potentially pushing AI generated content further. And it's the same with tools like Claude, ChatGPT, Perplexity for writing copy for a site. They're using formulas to make sure that the content is SEO optimized, which then the search engine goes, woohoo, this is great because I can recognize this pattern and I can
Yeah.
understand it easier.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think, I mean, YouTube descriptions is something that, is massive as well. I think YouTube is the second biggest search engine right behind Google. So people are searching YouTube more than they're searching the likes of Bing, for example. So it's massively powerful. And obviously descriptions work the same way as a website. You're going to have your keywords in there, and also make sure sort of the way websites would have internal linking, you want to make sure that the descriptions in the YouTube video link away to the relevant sort of page in the website. May that be talking about a service, may that be talking about a product. You always want to make sure that the SEO is not wasted. You're not getting people to see the stuff and not actually linking away to the sort of the end goal. Khadija, I know another point that you had, I know we kind of touched on Google My Business earlier on, but reviews, I mean, obviously reviews have always sort of been important in terms of, on Google, even on websites, testimonials and things like that. I'm going to guess with, the direction we're going, it's obviously a massive point and sort of something that people should be focusing on.
Yeah, again, so reviews and things like that, it's kind of a form of sort of user generated content. And that's really any form of content like images, videos that have been created by users that are using that online platform or service. So on a website, so for example, it could be on a blog section. If you have comments enabled, it could be the comments that are left by users. That's a type of user generated content, reviews, and things like that. And they're becoming more and more important because people are seeing that kind of content as more authentic and more trustworthy than almost like branded content. And it can help sort of boost that kind of engagement and create that kind of sense of community around a brand. So really leaning into that. And I think that could be a big change going future, and like for people to focus more into that user side of things. And it goes back to SEO changing so that it is more user centric. How is it useful to users that are going to go on your website, using your platform and things like that? So again, it's just coming back into how websites and platforms can be useful for potential customers and for potential users.
Again, we've always been pushing when it comes to strategies and stuff. We always try to push people to, especially on Google My Business, push for reviews on there, even on socials. I mean, Facebook, for example, I think a lot of people rely on reviews on Facebook. So again, socials is also integrated into that. It is one of those things when you think of, SEO and social media. Why are the two of them, sort of connected? But there is a lot of similarities. We sort of highlighted already. Even with the content structure, there is a lot of overlap between what you should be putting on your website and what you should be putting on social media. And we have also been able to utilize, and a lot of clients have been able to utilize, it's not like you have to create two sets of content for your website and then create more content for your social media. You can leverage the same content. It may need to be changed and tweaked in terms of, you're not going to put 5,000 words on a social media post, but the same sort of, the idea where you would take, say it was a blog you've written on your website and you want to talk about it in a social post. Again, use something like ChatGPT, reduce the title down, come up with a caption, and it's sort of killing two birds with one stone, which is exactly what what's good for people that's actually trying to do this, because it doesn't take as much time.
It's also an opportunity as well for all those lovely backlinks and an opportunity as well to, if we think about search engines, their sort of view, if we look at Google's view of, say, LinkedIn, if you Google a business's name, they have a LinkedIn company page, 9 times out of 10, their LinkedIn company page is going to come up quite, high in the SERPs because of the domain authority of a site like that, or a platform like that. So it's that integration again between the two. I think something that we couldn't talk about AI and its integration into all these platforms if we didn't talk a little bit about ethics and sort of, considerations, because like we sort of mentioned earlier, especially with, social media and the credibility of, say, a business, it's not using AI to replace you, as in writing all your social media copy for you. It's about, how to be strategic with it,
Yes.
essentially. In terms of like SEO and strategy for a website, are there any tools, sort of, Khadijah, that AI tools specifically, that you would really recommend that could be helpful to people, whenever they're creating content or optimizing their site in general?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of platforms already out there that are incorporating AI to help sort of optimize page content, blog content, rank math, for example, on WordPress. So they've been around for a while, but they've now got an AI functionality as well, where it will kind of help you with sort of content generation, but also kind of help you boost the SEO scoring on your content already. Makes it really easy, especially for people who are new to things like SEO and how to make everything optimized. Puts everything in a really clear way as well. So that's a really good one to use, especially for like blog content. Yeah, just to help you with optimizing the content and things like that.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's a lot of tools nowadays, and more free ones that are coming onto the market. Maybe not just as good, but in terms of, if you're listening to this today, for example, and you're like, oh, I wonder how my SEO sort of is performing, there is a lot of online tools that you can go in and sort of, put your website into, for example. And it is starting to use AI more than anything to sort of, see how the website looks and things like that. And it does kind of give you an idea. People don't realize at times, and again, I speak to a lot of clients, and I'm like, oh, this needs to be fixed, and this is not technically wrong, but it could be improved as such. And they're very much unaware of it. So again, it is always worth. On our website we have a lot of resources as well, that help people with making sure that the content they're creating and things like that is good. So again, it is just about utilizing as many tools as you can. I mean, you've highlighted one there, right, Math? It's brilliant as well. So it is just about utilizing as much as you possibly can, and making sure that what you're doing is correct. There's no point putting all the time and the effort into doing the SEO, because it's not something that's easy to do. It takes a little bit of time. A bit easier now with AI, of course, but it still takes a little bit of time. You want to make sure that you're doing everything completely right.
Mm. Something that we'd also mentioned earlier was, how to use like tools to help you enhance or optimize. And I was just, thinking, Dylan, did you have anything to add, sort of, in terms of what you would recommend someone does? Say they have a page on their site and they want to go in and SEO optimize it completely. What would you recommend they do in terms of like the steps, maybe, or like a wee strategy for them, essentially?
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing I always look at, again, I think I've already touched on it, is obviously content is key. It's always going to be about the content. Heading structure has always been important, but it's definitely something that we see is missing on a lot of websites. And people have really, really strong content, but their heading structure, for one, is maybe not the best. It's okay to have a heading. It's a different sort of level to have a really good heading. So with heading structure, you want to make sure, obviously, you have your H1s, H2s, H3s, and so on and so forth. But whatever headings you do have, you want to fill them with relevant keywords as much as you can. When Google is indexing your website, speaking from sort of a technical side, when Google is actually going through and they're spending time to index your site, they will be heavily reliant on headings. The content is sort of a subsidiary, but the headings is probably the most important thing, just because of schema and things like that. That's pretty much the first thing that they see when they do it. So I guess I feel like a top tip would be, no matter the heading that you have on your sort of page, and on any page on your website, make sure that the heading is not 3 words long, like something like "why partner with us," because I see that a lot. Do not put in "why partner with us." Do something either after it or before it that adds to it, and make sure that whatever that is, again, is all optimized for whatever keywords that you want to be targeting on that page. Again, you don't want it to come across, there's a very thin line between being very wishy-washy and obviously being concise and to the point. But it's definitely one of the things that I've noticed quite a bit of, is people don't realize they're putting headings in, they're not doing anything for them. They're spending a lot of time on their actual, the core of the content, which is exactly what you need to be doing, but sort of shooting themselves in the foot, metaphorically, to, with the actual headings and things like that. That would be my sort of, I mean, not a overall strategy, but that would be my top tip, if you like, just because it's something I see a lot of. And I do think that it has a massive impact when it comes to Google indexing and ranking your site.
Yeah, because if we're thinking about the bot or the spider, how it behaves, it wants to crawl as quickly as possible and understand what the page is about. So if we can,
Exactly.
anything we can do to help it with that, and help with that indication, it's this
Absolutely.
Same with
Yeah.
social media copy. You want to hit your keywords and your hook so that then the AI within the algorithm goes, that's what this reel is about. I know who to push it to. It's the exact same thing, just on different
Yeah.
platforms, essentially.
Absolutely. That's again re-emphasizing there's a lot of overlap there with between the socials and websites and stuff like that. But you're exactly right. The way the spider bot works is it will try and crawl websites as quick as possible. Google, even though they're a $1 trillion company, they are trying to cut down on resources that they spend. And that's why it used to be meta descriptions were more important than meta titles. But now they've switched that. The meta titles are more important than meta descriptions because they're easier to read. They're not as long. So they, again, just a bit of an involvement within SEOs as well. This is something we've seen over the last year and a half, nothing really related to AI just as much, but it's definitely something we are seeing is they're trying to cut back. Obviously it's 2025, everybody's cutting back. So Google's just joining the train. And that is one of the ways. So again, top tip, definitely headings and making sure that you're incorporating as many keywords as you can into them. Yeah, so just in summary of sort of what I had sort of touched on throughout today is sort of the key point here is SEO is not dead. AI is not killing it. The AI overviews are not going to, sort of wipe SEO off the map. It's just shifting the way that the traffic is sort of distributed more than anything. It is evolving. What I would say is to try and adapt for companies is make sure that, your website have sort of either a transactional or some sort of service-based value or advantage to it, making sure that there is something useful on it. So I sort of give the example, financial planner websites have calculators on them, things like that. Google will look at that as a big positive. And obviously with Google Analytics, Google Search Console, make sure you're actually reviewing where your traffic is coming from, because you could actually be finding that a lot of your sort of information and content on the website is coming from the overview. That's where it's coming from. So it's definitely something that is worth. And again, branding, authority, thing we've already sort of touched on the reviews, is going to be massive. So yeah, overall, SEO is definitely not dying. Not on my watch anyway.